Hello. So today I've decided to talk about the rule of law and pretty much injustice. So I've seen this case, but it's not the first case that makes me think about this. It's kind of like in Ireland, one night, this guy was sleeping when suddenly he had an uninvited guest who first came onto his property illegally, then broke a piece of his property, was a weapon, a stone, to come into his house, which is breaking and entering. Then he attacked this man while he was probably sleeping peacefully and had no idea what the hell was going on. And then, for well, let us remember that the guy who attacked him was drunk also. So he was also drunk and disorderly, disorderly conduct, public drunkenness. And actually, every single individual thing I've just said could result in you being jailed. But that guy attacked this man in his bed, which is pretty much a nightmare scenario. And well, this young man had at that point he kind of well, it's kind of understandable. So he pretty much like fought this guy off and stabbed him because when somebody who's bigger, stupider, and violent wakes you in the middle of the night to attack you for something you didn't do, uh, usually you don't respond very well. So this man, after being drunk and disorderly and violent and destroying property that wasn't his, he died, and he was killed by this man, who pretty much, how can we say this? When when you wake up, when you wake somebody up at the middle of the night when he's sleeping, usually you better have a good reason. Otherwise, it's not gonna go very well. Especially if he's not expecting you and you're an intruder and you're pretty much an incoherent drunk moron who's possibly armed, because that's something that well when you look at the police when they intervene, especially in the US, they always tell you the same thing. They always tell you not to reach because they don't want you to grab a weapon and shoot them to death. But the thing is, when somebody enters your home without your consent and he wants the thing is this, you don't know what they want. That's the first problem. The second problem is you don't know what they want and you don't know what they have or who they are. That's why usually when you bring people home, you kind of need to know a minimum about them. Otherwise, there's a lot of danger involved. So, well, I would say this situation is so crazy compared to most situations, like because most of the time violence arises with complete strangers. It's kind of like in the street, and in the street when somebody attacks you, you can kind of run away or you can scream and other people intervene to help you. Or I've already seen this situation. I've already been in this situation, and well, it's only a question of like almost most of the time it's always a question of a few seconds before somebody else intervenes to help you. But he's at home. What is he supposed to do at that point? Is he supposed to get out of his own home and start running away in the street, letting the maniac have everything? Like, is he supposed to like call for the police during a fight with somebody else, like distracting him from the fight? Because the thing is, you never know how a fight is gonna turn out while you're fighting it. Like, it maybe because this guy did break into his house with a rock. Maybe he still had the rock. Maybe uh, do you know how much damage a rock can do while you're trying to call the police on your phone? And the thing is, you can't really know like what your opponent had on him before you, well, before you stop him or you put him down. Like, you don't really know what he had. He could have had a gun, he could have had a knife, he could have had a machete, he could still have had that rock he used to break into the boy's home. So pretty much, like, also, like, the other thing is people will say, well, uh, he went too far when he killed him, and the answer is like, didn't the guy go too far when he entered somebody else's property without like permission? Didn't he go too far when he damaged the property? Didn't he go too far when he entered illegally the property? Didn't he go too far when he attacked another man in his sleep? When was the point of no return for this guy, for the other guy, the guy that got stabbed? Like, uh, Jack Powell's loss is incalculable. His family said. Like, the question is like, when did this fisherman guy go too far? Like, he attacked him when he was like 17. Like, it's quite crazy. Like, for for manslaughter, and like the jury, man, convicted by a jury. Like, shame on that jury. Like, shame on that jury. Like, I don't know how many they were. I don't know, like, if there were 12 of them. I'm sure that any 12 of them, if somebody suddenly attacked them in their sleep while they were sleeping at home, if that happened to them, they would expect to be able to defend themselves. Like, shame on that jury. Like, they're imposing a double standard that's completely insane on on that poor guy. Like, what's funny is we can go through a few comments on this other article. All the articles are the same. It's quite funny, but I love the comments. OMG, poor lad. Send that lad home. The UK has a problem with its justice, who's turning into a farce. So unfair. If somebody attacks you, you should be able to defend yourself however you see fit. Whether or not the attacker ends up dead, if you break into someone's home and attack them, you should take your chances and you might not survive. The law should be on the victim's side. You know that in France, because I live in France, there was a case where there was this kind, there was like a cat burglar, and he, because in France we have things that called like veranda, which are like, they're like a room, but the room's walls are made of glass, and the guy was walking on the veranda. He was on the roof of a glass room, and well, it's glass, and he stepped where he shouldn't have stepped, and he went through the veranda and he crashed on a table underneath, and on the table there was a knife, and he stabbed himself with the knife. So what happened is eventually emergency services were called, and he said uh, that he was a victim of the people he was trying to burglarize because he got stabbed with a knife. And I think he did win his case also. So the question is, well, why do we pay taxes if government can't keep us safe? The thing is, um, the safety the government gives you is limited. Like, for example, imagine for some reason, the kid actually like called the police. I don't know how he could have called the police because he was engaged in like combat. Like, he was fighting somebody. So he successfully calls the police, and then the police shows up 20 minutes later, and the attacker, this guy here, uh, he's gone, and Dean Carey is dead because in 20 minutes, that other guy, he was smarter than he was, and he kept the rock and he hit him in the face. Uh, what protection did the state give you? Like, the state can't give you the state, to give you protection, it needs somebody, uh, pretty much. Also, the thing is, I have a lot of friends that do a lot of sports, and they're very muscular people. And I think they could have wrestled that kid's knife out of his hand really easily and stabbed him with it. But the thing is, if you actually want to be safe, you need a way to equalize the strengths that people can have. And people's strengths is usually you can count in energy. It's a quantity of energy you can deploy against some other person. And the only way to equalize everybody is to have a gun. So as a state, to ensure your safety, at some point when there's escalation of violence, the state will need to bring people with guns to protect you. So that means that if you're in a lot of danger, especially if there are several people who are stronger than you that want to do you harm, may their reasons be reasonable or not. That means that there's somebody, when you call, there's somebody with a gun that has to show up to either stop those people physically or convince them that they cannot hurt you because he has a weapon that can stop them immediately. And the thing is, uh, if you don't have that, while you arrive at this kind of, even with the state being able to intervene, like, did the state help him? Like, uh, this story essentially convinces me that in the UK, even if the crime is horrible, calling the police is completely useless. Like, why did he call the police? Like, why did he give him? So the 17-year-old boy attacked in the middle of the fucking night. He was probably sleeping at that point, and they're like, oh, so there was this bigger, rougher fisherman like attacking him in his bed, pretty much, and this guy like was like, okay, so I don't know who that man is. I don't know how he got into my house. He's drunk. He's violent. He's belligerent. Like, I'm not gonna put up with this shit. I'm gonna get rid of him. The question is, at what point can you get rid of somebody? Like, because we kind of know where the state stands on this. Like, in the UK, there's a man. He did a video. It was a complete joke, and pretty much they were like, they got him to the police station and they dragged him through years and years of trial. So we know that in the UK, for a single joke, you can have a huge amount of problem. So the question is, when somebody attacks you nearly was almost I could consider that like criminal intent. You can defend yourself appropriately. Like, you have to like be at his mercy while the police shows up. So, well, I don't know how merciful drunk belligerent people are, but it's not a good idea. But because like this like kind of breakdown of the law, it also happens in France. Like, this is like, in France we have this more and more like, we have this case that's showing up more and more, like, where people like pretty much they see that a house is empty and they get into the house, and they pretty much like we have like squatters' rights in France. If you're living in a foreign country, you have to know this, that uh, in most places in the world, like, finding a house and living in it is really expensive. It's really hard to do. But in France, uh, if you're motivated squatters, you can pretty much go into somebody's house and live. So the I don't know why we have these injustices. Like, it's quite crazy. Like, how the law kind of becomes meaningless. How the how the usefulness of calling the cops has decreased over time. Like, when some people attack you, you can't defend yourself. When people come into your house, because like, usually like, when you're living in a place, you have to pay either rent or taxes. But these people are paying neither rent nor taxes. they don't have a credit at the bank because like usually to get ownership of something you need money, you need to pay for it, but they are not paying for anything. The thing is, now that they're in the house and the police are not kicking them out, like um, what happens is uh, they can do whatever the hell they want in the property. Like they can they can destroy everything, and you can't do anything about it. Like it's just a disaster. The thing is, uh, what why is the rule of law falling apart in the Western countries like France and the UK, and what is the point of having no rule of law? And I would think that the point is um, they want to privatize the police. So first, what they're gonna do is they're gonna make the police completely like useless, and then eventually they're gonna be like, it's time for us to privatize the police. And well, I can let you imagine like what a privatized police force looks like, because I think in India they have a privatized police force. It's not very good. Like so that's all I wanted to say today. So goodbye. And if you have any like questions or comments or ideas about this situation, just leave a comment or film a video response, and I'm eager to listen to it.